Hi, this is Joe Dayhut with 7 Mile Fly Shop. Today in this how-to tutorial, we're going to be tying a very popular bonefish and permit fly called the Flexo crab. So you want to start by fully dressing the hook up until the curve of the hook and proceeding by attaching dumbbell eyes of your choice of weight kind of towards the middle of the hook shank so that the fly keels correctly and we have space on either side of the dumbbell eyes to attach the flexo tubing. At this point, we're going to tie in our first section of the flexo tubing, and you want to, as shown here, put the flexo tubing over the eyes and tie in at the very end right as the hook begins to curve. You're going to make a couple of really tight wraps around this kind of last point of the flexo tubing and let the thread hang. At this point, we're going to put on some glue. We don't really need to whip finish from back here because it's very hard and wouldn't really create a great knot, so we're just going to coat it with glue. And the big thing here is that you want to coat it with enough glue that it sinks through to the hook. So cut your tying thread, and at this point we're done with the back half of the hook. Right now what you're seeing is I'm going to wrap thread around my finger to keep tension, and I'm going to pinch the flexo tubing and wrap just in front of the hook eye and make several tight wraps so as not to let the flexo tubing completely slip. So as you can see, the crab body is fairly flat on the bottom, and this will allow it to ride evenly in the water. Next, we're going to cut with some wire cutters the remaining flexo tubing, and we can save that for later. And as you'll see, there's a small umbrella of excess flexo tubing. What I like to do is push it back with my fingers and then come in with the wire cutters again and cut the excess so it's easy to make a couple final wraps right up against the eye of the hook. And it's at this point where we're going to finish off our fly with a 5-turn whip finish. And we've actually completed the entire tying portion of the fly. And moving forward, we will merely be assembling. So there's a couple components about assembling this fly that you may need prior to starting to tie this fly, and that consists of chenille legs, eyes made out of monofilament, and chenille claws that you can prepare ahead of time. The first step of getting the legs, the claws, and the eyes in this assembly format into the crab is using a piece of wire and threading it through the body of the crab. As you can see here, what I'm doing is using a small bodkin to assist with threading through the legs. You want to use medium or small chenille so that it flows easier in through the legs. And don't worry about the legs falling out because we can always use some super glue at the end for extra insurance. So as you can see, I've threaded through all 3 legs in the back of the crab. And it's at this point I will move on to the claws. And don't worry about the length of everything right now. We're going to trim up and color everything in at the end. So we're going to do the exact same process where we thread some bite wire or, a bobbin threader through the crab and bring our legs through. The claws can be a little bit stubborn sometimes because I like to use double chenille. And this flexo tubing is actually just made out of braided monofilament, so it's pretty tough. As you can see, I've prepared my claws before, and we will make another video on how to do that. After pulling both claws through, you want to adjust the length so that they are not too long, so that they won't foul around the hook, but they are not too short, so that they don't look too stubby. So at this point, we're going to take our eyes, which we have also prepared before this video, and I do so by using 30 or 40 pound monofilament and burning the tip. So what we want to do with the eyes is we want to make sure that the monofilament goes through the side of the crab in the front and the side of the crab in the back, so as not to mess up the keel of the fly once it's in the water. So leave your eyes after they are placed in your desired position a little bit out of the body. And what we're going to do now is we're going to super glue and pull the eyes through. And again, when you're fishing the flats in the Florida Keys, there's a lot of rough terrain that you're going to be fishing, whether it's coral or sand, turtle grass. These fish are going to mess up the fly. That's kind of inevitable. The cool thing about this fly is that we are completely done tying and merely doing assembly. So if an eye ends up falling out, you can always replace it if the body of the crab is still intact. So at this point, we have our eyes setting, the glue is completely set. And what I'm going to do just for insurance is dot some glue around the limbs of the crab. So right where the chenille meets the crab's body, just so that when we're casting, when we catch fish on this fly, it won't completely fall out after several fish. I'm going to use my wire cutters again and cut the excess monofilament. And now we have a clean edge. So here comes the fun part. We really get to design and shape and sculpt our crab the way we want it to look. If the crabs in your fishery have long legs, you can leave the legs long. If you're worried about them fouling, you can cut them a little bit short. This is kind of where your creative mind as a tyer can run wild, and you can start to have a little bit of fun. This little part is all about the finishing touches. If you gently adhere heat to the tips of the claws and the legs, you can get a lot of nice edges and make the fly really pretty. So I come in with a permanent marker. You can use Sharpies, any permanent marker of your choice. Add some finishing details. You can color the monofilament, the Flexo tubing. And add a little bit of blue around the claws. You can make this as realistic or as not realistic as you want. So that's the Flexo crab. Have fun hunting permit and bonefish.